I just yapped for 2 minutes and then I realized my video was not on. Big brain energy. Anyways, hi guys, welcome back to my second video. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. And how you guys doing? Let me know in the comments how are you guys doing. What are you currently reading? Let's talk in the comments. And also on today's agenda we have my February reading wrap up. And I know you're gonna see it in the middle of March, but yeah, I've now that I've overcome posting my first ever video, you're gonna see a lot of me and you're gonna be sick of me. Because now that I've edited my first video, now that I've made my thumbnail, like now that I've gotten to know how to do it, you best believe you're gonna see so much of me. Yeah, so let's just move right into my February reading wrap up. So I read 14 books in February, which sounds crazy, but I have so everywhere I go I have to do a long commute, and I feel like all I do is keep whining about the commute. But when you also have to do 2 hours of commute a day, you'll understand. But anyway, so wherever I go, I just end up reading on my commute because I'm gonna let the traffic pass. Give me a second. Yeah. Also, why does it happen? Every time I sit down to record something, it's gonna be so noisy. I mean, it's fine, whatever, I guess. Because this is the best place I could find to like sit down and talk. Anyways, yeah, so I was saying I read on the metro. Yeah, that's actually such a life changing decision because this thing has made my life so much easier, and I just end up reading all the way to my destination, and it helps me get a lot of reading done. So if you ever needed a reason to finally get your own e-reader, let this be it. Also look at this sticker. I don't know if you can see it. I think it's flipped. It says stop making drama, you're not Shakespeare, which, well, something to think about. And okay, so I'm just gonna move straight into my February reading wrap up. Before that, tea break. Also, look at my cute little mug. It's my penguin mug. This is my favorite thing ever. Anyways, okay, so I have my iPad over here. You can't see it, but I do have it. Yeah, this is not in any sequence from the first book I read. It's just like that. Yeah, so I mean, I just said that it's not in sequence. Now I'm thinking, I just. Anyways, okay. So, firstly, we have Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I love Taylor Jenkins Reid. I love everything she ever puts out, and now her new book is coming out, I think, sometime this year, if I'm not wrong. I think it's called Atmosphere, and I'm so excited for her book. And yeah, so I'm almost through reading every single one of her books. I just need to read Forever Uninterrupted, and then I'll have read all of her books. So that's pretty exciting. Back to Malibu Rising. So if you've read Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, one of Evelyn Hugo's husbands, Mick Riva, so his eldest daughter is the protagonist of Malibu Rising, and her siblings. So the whole Riva family is the main center focus, and yeah, so something about a story where a jerk rock star just abandons his family is always gonna hit the spot for me. It was also a little related to that in Daisy Jones and the Six. So I just love that plot point. So yeah, and you know how you just get connected to some characters, which is insane because I feel like she just like personifies the eldest daughter syndrome. And I just want to give Nina the biggest hug ever, and she deserves everything in the world because she parented her siblings while her father was off. And yeah, and the best part, all of this happens in the time frame of 24 hours. So through that 24 hours, you just cannot imagine how much happens in the book. It's just so fast paced, it's just so smart and dramatic and emotional. So yeah, you should definitely check it out. Let me just see how much I rated it. Oh yeah, I gave it 4.5 stars. Yeah. It was just a really really good book. I mean, all Taylor Jenkins Reid books are really good, but I really like this one as well. Then next I read 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. So my friend has been begging me to read this book, and I finally got to reading it in February. I borrowed it from my friend in, I don't know, I think November, December, and then I finally got around to reading it, and I'm so glad I read it because, okay, so one of my 2025 reading resolutions was to read a little bit out of my comfort zone, because I feel like I think from 2021, I've been reading so much romance that it's gotten a little bit repetitive and stagnant. So, one of my 2025 reading resolutions was to read out of my comfort zone and go back to like reading general fiction, because when I was a child, I used to read a lot of general fiction. Like, I can't remember any now, but yeah, so basically, general fiction, like, yeah, women's writing, anything of that sort. So I decided to move more into literary fiction and stay away from romance, not completely, but in the sense that it was it felt a little too tropey for me, and I got a little bored of it. but but then that just meant I got to go on a hunt for books, for romance books that were not too tropey. So if you feel the same, you should probably check this book out. And yeah, so this book is about two authors who, through their books, end up communicating with each other, and it's so like wonderfully written. It's so steamy, it's so spicy, it's so funny, and the representation of the black community is done so well throughout the book. And you know how just it just has so much more to the love story. Yeah, it was just so so good, and I think I rated it 5 stars if I'm not wrong. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. It I did rate it 5 stars, and it was just, I don't know what to say. It was just so wholesome. It was second chance, and the two authors end up meeting at a literary event, and that's how their sparks fly again, and their chemistry just cannot be denied. And yeah. Okay. And then next I read My Dark Vanessa by Kate Elizabeth Russell. I really like this cover. Something about this very nice. Anyways, so this I also rated it 5 stars. This was a very tough and difficult read, but I feel like it's a very important read. And yeah, so it was very disturbing. It made my heart feel heavy, and it's just so deeply unsettling because it's a beautiful exploration of abuse, grooming, pedophilia, and how, even when you grow up, that trauma just seems to follow you and it doesn't leave you alone. So it's about a grooming relationship, which to our protagonist Vanessa, it feels like an actual love affair, because that's how the teacher sort of ingrained that into her head. And yeah, it was so discomforting and manipulating to read, but it's a very powerful book, and it's probably gonna make you cry. Yeah, like if you think you're gonna get some easy answers if she gets justice or not, that's not how it happens, because it's okay, so it's told from two alternative timelines. And yeah, so when she was actually going through this and when she becomes an adult, revisiting those memories, and how it still sort of haunts her. It's just a really good book. I think you should definitely read this. Yeah, just thinking about it makes me, uneasy. But yeah. Okay. And then I read Convenience Store Women. So it's by Sayaka Murata, and that book is just so, honestly, it's sad. I mean, it at times it's funny, but it's just sad how people try to force Kiyoko, who works at a convenience store, to take up a job or get married, and she has been constantly called as like someone who's not normal and someone who needs to change herself. And honestly, she is a little weird because she wants to stab a baby to make him quiet, but uh, those violent tendencies aside, it's a really sad portrayal of how people are expected to conform to societal norms and constantly pressured for having more children, for getting married. I mean, not having more children, it's like having children and getting married. And yeah, it's just, honestly, it's very sad to see how she's portrayed, but it's a very short but a very impactful read. Yeah, so this is the kind of book which just has no plot, just vibes, and in the sense that she does work at a convenience store and her life just revolves around that convenience store. Nothing will ever make her leave that convenience store, and when she actually does leave the convenience store, it's almost as if she wants to kill herself, which, yeah, so it's like she doesn't exist outside of that convenience store. And it's a really important read in terms of how people are treated who don't, do what the society expects them to do. And yeah, it was really nice. It was a really good book. I think I rated it 3.75 stars. Then next I read The Vegetarian by Han Kang. And if you haven't heard about this book, I'm sure you're living under a rock because Han Kang won the Nobel Prize in Literature last year. And yeah, and these are her new, like, rebrand covers. This is such, again, this is such a weird, deep, and unsettling book because it's honestly at times a little bit gross. Because yeah, so basically this Korean woman, she decides to give up meat after having constant dreams of animals and a lot of blood and a lot of gore. So she gives up meat, which is sort of unheard in her community, and her family tries to force feed her meat. And yeah, and then that's how her descent into madness starts, because before that she was fine. She was allowed to do her own thing. If she doesn't want to eat meat, it's her own personal choice. It also presents how people's personal autonomy is sort of restricted, especially in culture, especially even if we consider cultures like our own. Even in this case, the father force feeds her daughter meat, and that's when she takes out a knife and tries to stab herself, which is, it's very disturbing. It's also, there's also an account of sexual abuse by her brother-in-law, and how people are institutionalized because of because of their non-conforming behavior. And yeah, the book is really well written. It's pretty short, and I think you should really, really check it out. I think I rated 5 stars or 4.75 stars. I rated 4.75 stars, and it's just a really, like, beautifully done book about mental illness, societal exploitation, isolation, and institutionalization. How people who get, like, sort of enrolled in mental health institutions are treated. And yeah, it's a really good book. I feel like I am being a little too weird because I don't know how to talk for so long. Anyways, I'll get better. It's fine. I am a literature student who is in her last semester and she's pursuing English literature. Like I said, I'm a literature student. Okay, so yeah, I read three classics in the month of February because I wanted to read a little bit out of my comfort zone. It's not like I did not used to read classics anyways. I used to read classics for my coursework, but this time I decided that I would read stuff that's not prescribed in my syllabus. So I read three classics in the month of February, which are Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath, The Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka, and The Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman. I think that's Gilman. Yeah. So, except for the last one, the yellow wallpaper is prescribed in my course syllabus, so I was reading that for studying, and the other two I just read for fun, in the sense that I like to be sad and depressed. I like reading sad books. That will make me feel things. Okay, so let's start with Bell Jar. Whew. that book was something. So this is a fictionalized semi autobiography of Sylvia Plath, and I have been sort of in a Sylvia Plath rabbit hole for the past few months, and I've been trying to learn as much as I can about her, which is why I ended up at reading Beljar. I also really want to read the unabridged journals of Sylvia Plath. I think that would be a good read. And yeah, so I read The Beljar. It's a semi fictionalized autobiography of Sylvia Plath, and it explores mental illness. Again, it also explores institutionalization, how those women who ascend into quote unquote madness are, sort of portrayed in the world, given at that time Esther Greenwood's like sort of descent into like madness and mental illness is portrayed with such beautiful honesty. And it's just, yeah, she is portrayed as a very smart, witty, intelligent person who, her life takes a turn when she encounters the mental illnesses that have plagued her mind. Yeah, next then I read The Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka. This is such a deeply existentialist book which is just gonna leave you like numb for a while, because it took me a good few days to decide how I feel about it, because I was just sort of trying to make sense of the book and the text. So the protagonist of Metamorphosis is Gregor Samsa, and he magically gets transformed into an insect. And then, through that process, the book takes on themes like family, isolation, loneliness, and how people who sort of don't end up working because they're not able to get treated in the world. It's a very stark critique of capitalism. Yeah, and also way to go Samsa's family, because that guy is doing so much for you, and the least you can do is just take care of him. He did so much for you. You would not have even existed if not for him. Please, okay? Okay, next I read The Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman, and I think it's a very short story. It's I think paged at around 70 pages, and yeah, so it oscillates between the horror and literary fiction genre, and it's also, I mean, it is obviously a classic, but yeah, it is supposed to be a very quintessential feminist tale in the sense that it explores how women are treated in a time where they lack any and all autonomy, and even her husband just sort of treats her illnesses as hysteria, because yeah, that's just how people were at the time. They just thought any woman who was ill is just hysteric and is just looking for attention. Yeah, and the yellow wallpaper, it just sort of becomes a symbol of being entrapped in a marriage, and the societal constraints that sort of restrict you to what maybe you don't want to do. And yeah, it's just very weird, it's just very chilling, and it's gonna live in your mind rent free, because it's just that kind of a book. My storage just ran out, so I had to create more storage. Anyways, so then I read I Wanna Die But I Wanna Eat Tteokbokki by Baek. If I'm pronouncing it wrong, I'm really sorry. But this is a memoir which is written through a series of, you know, like therapy transcripts. And honestly, the premise sounds really exciting, and it could have used a little bit more personal introspection, because it felt like almost more than half of the book was just the transcripts of the therapy sessions, and it felt a little too one sided, because actually I'm also not sure if the psychiatrist was qualified enough to like be giving those kind of advices, because if if the protagonist actually took up one of her advices, she would have actually left her job, and actually I feel like she was just burnt out, and it felt very one-sided. I was also discussing this with a friend, and both of us agreed on this point that it felt a bit one-sided, and almost as if it was just trying to be lazy, which I don't know, it was fine. I rated it 3 stars, You can definitely check it out, and it definitely gets a point for like trying to represent mental illness in the literary landscape. But other than that, I'm not sure about that. And this book has been so widely talked about on book talk, and yeah, I mean, to each their own, but I feel like it was a little too lazy. Which next I read was Dear Dolly by Dolly Alderton. I love Dolly. I love everything she writes except Ghosts. Ghosts did not do it for me. Other than that, all three of her books, goat. I love her books so much. So Dear Dolly is when, I think it was in 2020. I think in 2020, 2021 is when she was being an agony aunt, and she was doing that column for a newspaper, and that's when people wrote to her all from all over the world, and they wrote to her to, sort of take advice. uh yeah, so this book talks about all of the things that you think you face in your 20s are talked about in this book. So I feel like this is such a good book for, books to read in your 20s wali video. Maybe I should make one. Yeah, so it talks about love, it talks about relationships, it talks about intimacy, it talks about being comfortable in your own body, social media, it talks about family stuff, it talks about breakups, it talks about loneliness, heartbreak, it talks about possibly everything you can ever imagine, and it just feels like a warm hug. And yeah, so she just feels like an elder sister who's just sitting there giving you advice and listening to all of your problems. It's so empathetic and so funny. I just love that book. It was really nice. I think I rated it 4 stars. 4.5, 4.25 stars. Yeah. Next, I read First Time Caller by BK Paulison. This is my second video. I'm already talking about it again because I just love that book so much. And yeah, so basically, it's a Sleepless in Seattle fan fiction, and it's just gonna give you those 90s rom com vibes because Lucy is a single mother, and Maya, her daughter, feels that her mother is a little bit lonely. So she calls up this radio show host who is supposed to, like, give people advice on their love lives. So that's how sparks fly. And yeah, if you are someone who like enjoys books where people have some emotional intimacy before they get physically intimate, this would be a very good book. It's so cute. I mean, it's just gonna make you laugh out loud. It's so good. I really enjoy this book, and it's just wholesome. It's just wholesomeness at its peak. I'm sure you're not gonna find one single character you don't like in this book. So it's perfect. I really really enjoyed this book. I think I rated it 5 stars, and if I didn't rate it 5 stars, shame on me. I should rate it 5 stars. Then next up, I read The Eyes Are the Best Part by Monica Kim. So this is a literary fiction slash horror, and okay, so our main character is called Ji-won, and Ji-won is a Korean American, and it's the psychological feminist thriller, and it, you know takes on the inception of a serial killer, because Ji-won and her family, so her mother used to urge her to eat fish eyes because they were supposed to bring good luck, and she always used to be very skeptical about, eating a fish's eyeballs. So yeah, so when she actually does take a try at that, that's how her obsession with eyeballs start. And as the name suggests, the eyes are the best part. So throughout the book, you see some instances where she's gonna find a corpse and she's gonna gouge out the eyeballs and eat it. And other than that, almost towards the end, you end up rooting for her because good for her. Honestly, good for her, because she is sort of eradicating like the horrible men in her life, in her mother's life, so their family doesn't get harassed. And yeah, honestly, I too was rooting for her. I was rooting for her so bad. It's just a really good book. If you're expecting like jump scares a la horror, it's not that. It's more psychological horror, if it makes sense. So yeah, this was a very good book. I rated 4.5 stars. This was a very good reading once, I'm telling you. Next I read was Beg, Borrow, Steal by Sarah Adams. So Sarah Adams is probably one of my favorite fluff authors. She just writes such cute, emotional, light-hearted, funny, like wholesome books, which I mean, she just is really good at what she does. So it's set in a small town and it follows two rival teachers, and as you know it, what do you know happens? That actually happens, and they end up fighting their desire to actually not admit that they like each other, and it's just very cute. And I think you should really, really check it out. Yeah, Sarah Adams just knows how to do the wholesome, fluffy romance books. Yeah, it wasn't my favorite romance book by Sarah Adams. I think that's my favorite. My favorite book by Sarah Adams is Cheat Sheet, and yeah, this wasn't my favorite by her, but it was still a very enjoyable and fun read. Next, I read My Year of Rest and Relaxation by Otessa Moshfegh, and I rated it 5 stars. So, this book is about a young woman who's extremely privileged, extremely wealthy, who decides to take a break and hibernate for 1 year in the hopes that it's gonna fix her life. And yeah, so she does this through the help of prescription medicines, which are prescribed to her by probably one of the worst psychiatrists in the history of books, in the history of the world. That psychiatrist is just horrible and keeps like providing her an influx of prescription medicines, and she uses that to sort of go into hibernation. And it's a beautiful exploration of mental illness, isolation, privilege, and how in the capitalist society that we live in, how most of us cannot even afford to take a break for 1 day, let alone for a whole year. So it was a very brilliant book. I had this for the past few months, but I finally got around to reading it in February, and I'm so glad I did because I really, really enjoyed this book. And the writing is so hypnotic and so compelling, and yeah, it's just a really good book. I would highly recommend it. It's not that long also, so you can probably finish it in 2 days. So yeah, you should definitely check that out. And that's it for my February reading wrap up. And I'm so sorry for being a little awkward at times. I'm still learning how to do this, and just to sit at length and talk about books. I mean, I can talk about books in general, but like I have to do that like looking at my own face in the camera, which is just a little too weird for me. And I mean, it's fine. I'll get used to it. But yeah, this is it for my February reading wrap up. This is all I read, and I think it was a very successful reading month. And please do let me know in the comments if you've read any of these books, if you like to read any of these books. I would love to talk to you, and I would love to hear your thoughts about these books. And yeah, please do let me know what you think. Thank you for watching. Okay, bye. I really hope you like stick around for more of my videos because I would really love to keep posting, but I'm a little awkward and I'm a little stressed, but I hope that I will overcome it. I mean, I will eventually because it takes practice to even sit down and make long form videos, because short form is so much more easy in terms of like you just have to sit and speak for 15 seconds. And I mean, yeah, it's also because I've had practice at that, so it's fine. But hopefully, I'll get better at this. So, anyways, I'm rambling now. So, thank you for watching. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in my next video. Okay, bye.